Suprabhatam. Today, once again, we are going to take up another talk which was delivered by Swamiji in London on 20th of October 1896. It is a part of famous 4 yogas of Swamiji, Gyan Yoga. It comes under 3 talks he gave on Maya. The first talk was Maya and illusion. Second talk was Maya and the evolution of the conception of God. And the third was Maya and freedom. Today we are going to take up Maya and the evolution of the conception of God. It's a very interesting talk Swamiji delivered, and once we go through that, it will be fairly clear about the conception of God and how it is connected with our day-to-day life. Swamiji is mentioning that what we understand Maya's illusion is not correct. The translation of the word is neither happy nor correct. It is not a theory. Maya is simply a statement of facts about the universe as it is existing. And to understand Maya, one must go back to the Samhitas and begin with the conception in the germ. That is from beginning. He is nice narrating about the Devas. He is saying, we have seen how the idea of the Devas came. And at the same time, we also know that these Devas were at first only powerful beings, nothing more than that, what we understand about them as of now. We might have been horrified by reading old scriptures, whether of Greek's origin or Hebrews or Persians or any other, to find that the ancient gods sometimes did things which to us are very repugnant. But when you're reading these books, these ancients happened at that point of time, and as the centuries have passed, it has been changing a lot. We also forget that the people who worship these gods found nothing incongruous in their characters, found nothing to frighten them, because most of them are like that. So Swamiji is saying that he can put a remark that is the one great lesson he has learnt throughout his lives. That is, in judging others, you always judge them by your own ideas. This interesting observations is very important in our day-to-day life also. Everyone must be judged according to his own ideal and not by that of anyone else. In our day-to-day dealings with fellow beings, we constantly labor under this mistake. And Swamiji is saying that he is of opinion that the vast majority of our quarrels with one another arise simply from this one, because we are always trying to judge others' gods by our own, others' ideals by our own ideals, and others' motives by our own motives. So he is saying that in certain circumstances we can do certain things as per our own liking or disliking. So I think he has also the same motive actuating him, little dreaming that although the effect may be the same, yet many other causes may produce the same thing. That means, in judging of those ancient religions, we must not take the standpoint to which we incline, but must put ourselves into the position of thought and the life of those early times. Very interesting observations. Like the idea of cruel and ruthless Jehovah in the Old Testament has frightened many. But why? What right have they to assume that Jehovah of the ancient Jews must represent the conventional idea of the God of the present day? And at the same time, we must not forget that there will be time to come when men after us will laugh at our own ideas, when they see or they'll read about ourselves. Yet, through all these various conceptions runs the golden thread of unity, and it is the purpose of the Vedanta to discover this thread. I quote from Lord Krishna, I am the thread that runs through all these various ideas, each one of which lies like a pearl. And it is only the duty of the Vedanta to establish this connecting thread However incongruous or disgusting may seem these ideas when judged according to the conception of today or that point of time, these ideas in the setting of past times were harmonious and not more hideous than our present ideas. It is only when we try to take up them in our present settings and apply them, then it becomes heinous, obviously. For the old surroundings are dead and gone. Just as the ancient Jew has developed into the keen, modern, sharp Jew, and the ancient Aryan into the intellectual Hindu, similarly Jehovah has grown and Devas have also grown. The great mistake is in recognizing the evolution of the worshippers, while we do not acknowledge the evolution of the worshipped. He is not credited with the advance that his devotees have made. That is to say, you and I, as representing ideas, have grown. These also, gods also, as representing ideas, have grown. He is saying it may be seeming sometimes curious to us that God can grow. He cannot. He is unchangeable. In the same sense that real man never grows, but man's ideas of God are constantly changing and expanding. And that's the thing. Thus, as we grow, so the gods grow. From the ordinary point of view, just as we reveal ourselves, as we evolve, so the gods reveal themselves. We shall now be in a position to understand the theory of Maya. In all the religions of the world, the one question they propose to discuss is this. Swamiji is saying, why is there disharmony in the universe? Why is there this evil in the universe? We do not find this question in the very inception of primitive religion ideas, because the world did not appear incongruous to the primitive men. Circumstances were not inharmonious for them. There was no clash of opinion. To them, there was no antagonism of good and evil. There was merely feeling of his own heart of something which said yeah and something which said nay. The primitive man was a man of impulse. He did what occurred to him and tried to bring out through his muscles whatever thought came to his mind, and he never stopped to judge and seldom trying to check his impulses. So is the gods. They were also creatures of impulse. Indra comes and shatters the force of the demons. Jehovah is pleased with one person and displeased with another. For what reason? No one knows or asks this question. The habit of inquiry had not then arisen, and whatever he did was regarded as right. There was no idea of good or evil. And that is the interesting part. With the advance of these ethical ideas came the fight. There arose a certain sense in man, called in different languages and nations by different names. Call it the voice of God, or the result of past education, or whatever one may like. But the effect was this, that it had a checking power upon the natural impulses of man. There is one impulse in our minds which says do. Behind it rises another voice which says do not. There is one set of idea in our mind which is always struggling to get outside through the channels of the senses, and behind that, although it may be thin and weak, there is an infinitely small voice which says no, do not go outside. Swamiji is saying these two beautiful things can be described in Sanskrit words as prabhritri and nibritri. That means circling forward and circling inward. This is a very interesting aspect. Circling forward means which usually govern our actions. Religion begins with the circling inward. Religion begins with this do not. Spirituality begins with this do not. When the do not is not there, religion has not begun, and this do not came, causing man's ideas to grow, despite the fighting gods which they had worshipped. A little love awake in the hearts of mankind. It was very small indeed, and even now it is not much greater. It was at first confined to a tribe, embracing perhaps members of the same tribe. These gods loved their tribes, and each god was a tribal god, the product of that tribe. And sometimes the members of a tribe would think of themselves as the descendants of their god, just as the clans in different nations think that the common descendants of man was the founder of the clan. In this regard, Swamiji is making a very interesting concept. So the idea naturally came, how can we live together without bearing and forbearing? How can one man live with another without having some time or the other to check his impulses, to restrain himself, to forbear from doing things which his mind would prompt him to do? It is impossible. Thus comes the idea of restraint. The whole social fabric is based upon the idea of restraint. And we all know that the man or woman who has not learned the great lesson of bearing and forbearing leads a most miserable life, which in today's world we can see in a day-to-day basis. And plenty of examples are there which is correctly representing this concept that Swamiji is giving here. Now, when these ideas of religion came, a glimpse of something higher, more ethical, drawn upon the intellect of our mankind. The old gods were found to be incongruous. These boisterous, fighting, drinking, beef-eating gods of the ancients, as Swami is saying, whose delight was in smell of burning flesh and libations of strong liquor. Swami is saying the god to be worshipped was no more a simple symbol of power, something more of it was required than that. He was an ethical god. He loved mankind and did good to mankind. But the idea of God still remained. They increased his ethical significance and increased also his power. He became the most ethical being in the universal as well as almost almighty. Interesting thing Swamiji is saying, very interestingly, that all this patchwork would not do. As the explanation assumed greater proportions, the difficulty which it solved or tried to solve did the same. If the qualities of God increased in arithmetical progression, the difficulty increased in the geometric progression or the doubt. The difficulty of Jehovah is very little beside the difficulty of the God of the universe, and this question remains to the present day. Why, under the reign of an almighty and all-loving God of the universe, should diabolical things be allowed to remain? Why so much more misery than happiness? Why so much more wickedness than God? We may shut our eyes to all these things, but the fact still remains that this world is a hideous world. At best, it is a hell of Tantalus. It is a hell of Tantalus. Here we are with strong impulses and stronger cravings for sense enjoyments, but cannot satisfy them. There rises a wave which impels us forward in spite of our own will, and as soon as we move one step, comes a blow. We are all doomed to live here like Tantalus. Ideas come into our head far beyond the limits of our sense ideas, but when we seek to express them, we cannot do so. On the other hand, we are crushed by the surging mass around us. Yet, if I give up all ideality and merely struggle through this world, my existence is that of a brute and I degenerate and degrade myself. Neither way is happiness. So, unhappiness is the fate of those who are content to live in this world, born as they are. 1,000 times greater misery is the fate of those who dare to stand forth for truth and for higher things, and who dare to ask for something higher than mere brute existence. These are the facts, but there is no explanations. There cannot be any explanation. But the Vedanta shows the way out. Swamiji is saying, you must bear in mind that I have to tell you facts that will frighten you sometimes. But if you remember what I say, I think of it and digest it, it will be yours. It will raise your higher and make you capable of understanding a living truth, unquote. Now it is a statement of fact that this world is a Tantalus hell, that we do not know anything about this universe. Yet at the same time, we cannot say that we do not know. I cannot say that this chain does not exist when I think that I know that it does. It may be an entire delusion of my brain. I may be daydreaming all the time. I am dreaming that I am talking to you and that you are listening to me. No one can prove that it is not a dream. My brain itself is maybe a dream. And as to that, no one has ever seen his own brains. It's a very interesting fact. We all take it for granted. So it is with everything. My own body I take for granted, and at the same time I cannot say I do not know. This standing between knowledge and ignorance, this mystic twilight, the mingling of truth and falsehood, and where they meet, no one knows. We are walking in the midst of a dream, half asleep, half awake, passing all our lives in a haze. This is the fate of every one of us. This is the fate of all sense knowledge. This is the fate of all philosophy, of all boasted science, of all boasted human knowledge. This is the universe. What you call matter, Swamiji is saying, or spirit or mind, or anything else you may like to call them, the fact remains the same. He is saying we cannot say that they are, we cannot say that they are not. We cannot say they are one, we cannot say they are many. This eternal play of light and darkness, indiscriminate, indistinguishable, inseparable, is always there. A fact, yet at the same time not a fact. Awake and at the same time asleep. This is a statement of facts, and this is what is called Maya. We are born in this Maya, we live in it, and we think in it, we dream in it. We are philosophers in it, we are spiritual men in it. We are devils in this Maya, and we are gods in this Maya. Stretch your idea as far as you can, make them higher and higher, call them infinite, or by any other name you can please. Even these ideas are within this Maya. It cannot be otherwise. And the whole human knowledge is a generalization of this Maya, trying to know it as it appears to be. This is the work of Nama Rupa, name and form. Everything that has form, everything that calls up an idea in your mind is within the Maya. For everything that is bound by the laws of time, space and causation is within the Maya. Swami is saying, let's go back a little to those early ideas of God and see what became of them. Very interesting, very logical. He is saying we perceive at once that the idea of some being who is eternally loving us, eternally unselfish and almighty, ruling this universe, could not satisfy. Quote, where is the just, merciful God? Unquote, asked the philosopher. Does he not see millions and millions of his children perish in the form of men and animals? For who can live one moment here without killing others? Can you draw a breath without destroying thousands of lives? You live because millions die. A very prophetic statement. Every moment of your life, every breath that you breathe is death to thousands. Every movement that you make is death to millions. Every morsel that you eat is death to millions. Why should they die? There is an old sophism that they are very low existence. Supposing they are, which is in question. For who knows whether the ant is greater than the man or the man is greater than the ant? Who can prove one or the other? Apart from that question, even taking it for granted that these are very low beings, still why should they die? If they are low, they have more reasons to live. Why not? Because they live more in the senses. They feel pleasure and pain 1,000 times more than you and I can do. Which of us eats dinner with the same gusto as a dog or a wolf? None. Because our energies are not in the senses. They are in our intellect. They are in our spirit. But animals, their whole soul is in their senses, and they become mad and enjoy things which you human beings never dream of. And the pain is commensurate with this pleasure. Pleasure and pain are meted out in equal measure. If the pleasure felt by animals do so much keener than that felt by men, it follows that the animal's sense of pain is as keen, if not keener than man's. So the fact is, the pain and misery men feel in dying is intensified 1,000 times in animals, and yet we kill them without troubling ourselves about their misery. This is called Maya. And if we suppose there is a personal God like a human being who has made everything, these so-called explanations and theories which try to prove that our evil comes good are not sufficient. Let 20,000 good things come, but why should they come from evil? On that principle, Swamiji is saying, I might cut the throats of others because I want the full pleasure of my 5 senses. That is no reason. Why should good come through evil? The question remains to be answered, and it cannot be answered. The philosophy of India has compelled to admit this. That is the beauty of our Vedanta philosophy. The Vedanta was and it is in the boldest system of religion or the spiritual. It has stopped nowhere and it had no advantage. It got one advantage. There is nobody of priests who sought to suppress every man who tried to tell the truth. There is always absolute religious freedom. In India, the bondage of superstition is a social one. Here in the West, society is very free. Swamiji is mentioning. Social matters in India are very strict, but religious opinions are free. As per Swamiji's expression, in England, a man may dress in any way he likes or eat what he likes. No one will object. But if he misses attending church, then, Swamiji is nicely saying, Mrs. Grundy is down on him. He has to confirm first to what society says on religion, and then he may think of the truth. In India, on the other hand, if a man dines with one who does not belong to his own caste, down comes society with all its terrible powers and crushes him then and there. If he wants to dress a little differently from the way in which his ancestor dresses ages ago, he is done for. Swamiji is saying, I have heard a man who was cast out by society because he went several miles to see the first railway train. Well, we shall presume that was not true. But in religion, we find atheists, materialists and Buddhists, creeds, opinions and speculation of every phase and every variety, some of the most startling character living side by side. Preachers of all sects go about teaching and getting adherents. And at the very gates of the temples of God and the Brahmins, to their credit, he said, allow even the materialist to stand and give forth their opinion. He is giving a very interesting example. He is saying that Buddha died at a ripe old age. And he is saying, I remember a good old friend, an American scientist he was fond of reading his life. He did not like the way the Buddha died because he was not crucified. What a false idea. For a man to be great, he must be murdered. Such ideas never prevailed in India, Swamiji is saying. This great Buddha travelled all over India, denouncing her gods and even the God of the universe, and yet he lived to a good old age. For 80 years he lived and converted half of this country called India. Another example, Swamiji is saying that about the Charvakas who preach horrible things, the most rank, undistinguished materialism, such as in the 19th century they did not openly preach. These Charvakas were allowed to preach them from the temple to temple, city to city, that religion was all nonsense, that it was priestcraft, that the Vedas were the words and writings of fools, rogues and demons, and that there was neither God nor an eternal soul. If there is a soul, why did it not come back after death, drawn by the love of wife and child? Their idea was that if there was a soul, it must still love after death and want good things to eat and nice dress. Yet no one heard these Charvakas. That is the part in reality. Thus, Swamiji is saying, very important, India has always had this magnificent idea of religious freedom. And one must remember that freedom is the first condition of growth. What you do that make you free will never grow. The idea that you can make others grow and help them grow, that you can direct and guide them, always retaining for yourselves the freedom of the teacher, is nonsense, a dangerous lie which has retarded the growth of millions and millions of human beings in this world. Let men have the light of liberty. That is the only condition for the growth. Swamiji is saying, in India, we are allowed liberty in spiritual matters. And we have a tremendous spiritual power in religious thought even today. We grant the same liberty in social matters. And so have a splendid social organization in the Western world. We have not given any freedom to the expansion of social matters, and ours is a cramped society. Swamiji is very nicely, clearly mentioning about this differentiation. Swamiji is saying, you have never given any freedom in religious matters, but with the fire and sword have enforced your beliefs, and the result is that religion is a stunted, degenerate growth in the European mind. In India, we have to take off the shackles from society. In Europe, the chain must be taken from the feet of spiritual progress. then will come a wonderful growth and development of man. If we discover that there is one unity running through all these developments, spiritual, moral and social, we shall find that the religion, in the fullest sense of the word, must come into society and into our everyday life. In the light of Vedanta, Swamiji is saying, we will understand that all sciences are but manifestation of religion, and so is everything that exists in the world. Swamiji's thought about this is very interesting. He is saying, we see then that through freedom the sciences were built, and in them we have two sets of opinion. Very logical, very interesting. One of them is materialistic and denouncing, the other is positive and constructive. It is the most curious fact that in every society one can find them. Supposing there is an evil in society, one can find immediately some group which is rise up and denounce it in vindictive fashion, which sometimes degenerates into fanaticism. There are fanatics in every society, and women frequently join in these outcries because of their impulsive nature. Swamiji is very strong in his observations. Every fanatic who grew up and denounced something can secure a following. It is very easy to break down. A maniac can break anything he likes, but it would be hard for him to build up anything. These fanatics may do some good according to their life, but much more harm. Because social institutions are not made in a day, and to change them means removing the cause. Suppose there is an evil, denouncing it will not remove it, but you must go to work at the root. First find out the cause, then remove it, and the effect will be removed also, immediately. Mere outcry will not produce any effect unless until it is indeed it produces misfortune. There are people who get sympathy in their hearts and who understand that idea. We must go deep into the cause. These are the great saints. One fact Swamiji is saying, one must remember that all the great teachers of the world have declared that they come not to destroy but to fulfill. Many times this idea has not been understood, and their forbearance has been thought to be an unworthy compromise with the existing popular opinions. When now Swamiji is mentioning, you occasionally hear that these prophets and great teachers were rather cowardly and dared not say and do what they thought was right. But that was not so. Swamiji is very nice to saying about this issue about fanaticism. The fanatics little understand the infinite power of love in the hearts of these great sages who looked upon inhabitants of this world as their children. They were the real fathers, the real gods, filled with infinite sympathy and patience for everyone. They were ready to bear and forbear. They knew how human society should grow, and patiently, slowly, surely went on applying their remedies, not by denouncing and threatening people, but by gently and kindly leading them upwards step by step. Such were the writers of Upanishads. They knew full well how the old ideas of God were not reconcilable with the advanced ethical ideas of the time. They knew full well that what the atheists were preaching contained a good deal of truth, nay, great nuggets of truth. But at the same time, they understood that those who wished to serve the thread that bound the beads, who wanted to build a new society in the air, would entirely fall. Swamiji is mentioning, we never build anew, we simply change places. We cannot have anything new. We only change on the position of things. The seed grows into the tree patiently and gently. We must direct our energies towards the truth and fulfill the truth that exists, not to try to make the new truths. Thus, instead of denouncing these old ideas of God as unfit for modern times, the ancient sages began to seek out the reality that was in them. The result was the Vedanta philosophy. And out of the old deities, out of the monotheistic God, the ruler of the universe, they found yet another higher and higher ideas in what is called the impersonal absolute. They found oneness throughout this universe. Swami is very nicely mentioning and final points in this talk he delivered on Maya and the conception of God. I quote, "He who sees in this world of manifoldness that one running through all In this world of death, he who finds that one infinite life, and in this world of insentience and ignorance, he who finds that one light and knowledge, unto him belongs eternal peace, unto none else, unto none else. That is the way Swamiji is describing the Maya and the conception of God. Wonderfully describing this. What is Maya? What is the concept of God in early days? Why it shouldn't be changed, and how it can be taken for care in the current world. Next we will talk about Maya and freedom in another day. Thank you very much. Hari Om Tat Sat.